Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 133 and the start of the 25-26 season. As always, I'm joined by my captain, Nocky, one of our closest to ever presents. I'm not sure where Tyler is. Maybe he's on a holiday. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Celta Vigo game, give you our player and match analysis, talk about pre-season, a little roundup on that, talk about the arrivals, that won't take long, the departures, and take many of your questions. Nocky, good evening. I hope you've had a good summer. I know you have. This is going to be quite tasty. People are upset. Let's get straight down to business. It was only a friendly, Nocky. But we are expecting high standards in a team that looks ready for the season. Your take on Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, Celta Vigo 1.
You don't want to get too carried away, do you? Because it is a friendly and it is about fitness. But in saying that, you're expecting when you're on your last friendly before you start the season that maybe you've got a little bit more energy, a little bit more impetus. You're trying to maybe take the game to them and just... You kind of think the 11 you put out is probably going to be the 11 that starts against City or pretty close to it. It wasn't. There was no intensity. There was no drive, and I think that the lack of quality was absolutely obvious. I mean, we've lost so many players and so many first team players and players that affect games for us, and we just haven't replaced them with the same quality. And you could feel that it was a really disappointing performance. And yes, it's only a friendly, but you want to finish on a high. You've got, there's a decent crowd there at Molineux. You want people to be ready and enthused about the new season. And it was just a very tepid performance. I thought they were better than us. I thought they moved the ball really well. They were quick. The triangles that kind of played through us. The space between Doherty and Hoover was just tremendous. You could have landed a jumbo jet in that space, and we never shut that down. I think it's revealed more problems than solutions, really. There's a squad that's badly lacking. We have got a little bit of quality in there, but you could see when Gomez and Andre had the ball, they had nothing to really hit. Strand Larsen he's looked lost all pre-season to me. Agbadou looks, I don't know, he just hasn't been at it again. It's pre-season, so you don't want to be too harsh on him, but he's looked very leggy, just not very comfortable. We just stink of a team that's going to concede a lot of goals this season. We've got that makeup about us, and there's some serious work needs to be done, and obviously it's not going to be done before next week's game.
Yeah, it's a tough one with pre-season, isn't it? I mean, someone put a really good tweet out earlier on, a couple of years ago back. I think it was maybe the promotion year, when I think we played Leicester at home in a friendly. The team was ready, didn't they? There was free-flowing football. There was a plan. And I'm not saying there's a plan. It just looks like a team that have lost all the flair, all the pace, and it's a team full of the stoppers in there with little creativity. Now, I expect we'll see more from Arias. I think Fer Lopez is one that will grow in the future, but I can't come on saying, it'll be okay. I am ultimately, I think, a very positive person, but I always try and say what I see. But it's hard to pull a lot of positives. But I am going to pull one positive, Nocky, and that is, we talk about the penny dropping a week before the season. If that's the best 11, which it usually is, the manager sees that's probably the 11 he's going to go with next week. Really, the chairman should be advised by the people around him. That's our team for the Premier League. We need some serious help.
Yeah, but you're talking about Jeff Shea here, aren't you? I mean, we heard his podcast. He's got very little interest in the football side of things. He's very much about esports and sitting at home playing Football Manager and Fortnite. He's not got the understanding. He hasn't got the football brain. I think he's lost. I think he's a wretched chairman. I really do. And it seems strange saying that because of all the success we've had under Fosun, but I think that's not because of Jeff Sheets. It's despite the fact that we've got him here. I just think his communication's gone. He doesn't manage expectations correctly. He's just a very, very poor chairman. And we're reliant again on the three teams coming up being worse than us, aren't we? And you can see that's where the game plan is. I know we're going to come on to the ins and outs as we go, but when we talk about the lack of fluidity and the lack of quality we've got in the team, we've shipped out something like 13 players. There's going to be at least 2 or 3 more go. We've brought in 3, and I'd say out of those 3, one of them's certainly oven ready for the Premier League in Arias. Wolfie's probably unproven. I think it would be very fair to say that we didn't know a great deal about him before he came. Showed some decent moments yesterday, but then he got flattened and kind of took him out of the game. And then we've got Fer Lopez, who I think is going to have a Rodrigo Gomez season for us, where there's clearly a footballer there. There's some real potential. but you're 18 months away from seeing a finished product. So you can't lose that much quality out of your squad and then just think you're going to be okay. And I've seen other teams and other supporters talking about how their teams needs to sign players, their team needs to be more proactive, and I absolutely get that. But the difference is we've had absolute harm done to our squad this season. We've lost so many players. And I think there's only us and Brentford who've took that kind of damage. So although other sides might not be signing, they're not losing the players in the volume that we're losing the players, which is, of course, going to affect you. And it was obvious yesterday. I mean, Arias does look a good player. I liked his movement. Really quick feet, should have scored, but did well to get himself into that position. So he looks like the sort of footballer that we're usually selling at this stage, not buying. So he looks like a really good signing for us. But we're 4 or 5 away from me.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many good questions. And by the way, before the show each week, I drop a tweet out. There were so many good questions. I couldn't get them all on. So I've tried to group a few together. We're going to spend a real chunk on that later on to get through them. Let's go into the game, Nocky. Let's go straight into the player analysis. Now, we're going to get some graphics better than this, but this is something a little bit different for this season. I hope you like it, to talk you through the team. Now, it was only a friendly, Nocky, but let's go through it. Just give our ratings. Bear in mind, we are 6 days away from the Premier League now. So Jose Sarr, I wouldn't say he was peppered, but he was certainly the busier of the two keepers.
Yeah, come in for a bit of stick, Jose, as from a few people. I'm not really sure why. I thought he was okay. Didn't have much of a chance with the goal. One kick I remember steaming out of play, but he was relatively solid, really, but not tested for the amount of possession and dangerous areas they got the ball. He wasn't really tested, so he did okay. It was a decent performance.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about Jose Sarr is he's someone now that seems a little bit more consistent, a little bit more rational in terms of his performances. That's something that has slowly developed under this manager. Now, we'd probably got to Christmas last year and said, we probably do need another keeper. But slowly as it's gone on, he looks less of a priority. I mean, we certainly need a backup. Sam Johnson's probably going to go if you can find another club. I'm not sure Bentley's up for it. But I certainly feel now, Nocky, I know it's a poor pun, but I do feel in better hands with Jose Sarr in goal, this version of him and Vitor Pereira.
Yeah, I completely agree. But do you think that's because he's got Agbadou in front of him now? He's got a little bit more calmness and a little bit more. I mean, obviously Agbadou's not had a great pre-season, but we've seen enough of him to know that he's a good player. So I think when you've got a defender like that in front of you, maybe it just brings that confidence out a little bit in you. And also he's not having to play out from the back the way he used to. He's just lumping it when he needs to, which is probably more comfortable for him.
Absolutely. That I know Gary O'Neill and other managers are that they are set in that purist way and you must play out and it costs goals left, right and centre. What I like now is if you haven't got the pass, you're okay to lump it to Strand Larsen. Yeah, it's a percentage ball. Strand Larsen's a big strapping lad. He does hold it up and he does knock it down reasonably well. So I've no issue with that. But yeah, moving on to the back three, Toti Gomez. I thought he was okay, to be honest. Not poor, not bad, just all right.
Yeah, it did look a bit clumsy. There was a few moments where he looked a bit clumsy. I think he's going to miss Ait-Nouri this season. Ait-Nouri was massive for Toti in protecting him and giving him an out ball. We don't know what Wolf's going to be like yet with the best will in the world. So you're hoping he's going to establish the same sort of relationship. But he looked, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about that back line.
Yeah, I understand. But I just think with Toti, we just have to accept who he is. He doesn't look the most natural, but when he's one-on-one, he does his best work. And I know, obviously, Tyler's got strong opinions on this. I think Toti's very much 2 good games, sort of 1 really poor game, but he's a player that's grown, and he's certainly not the first problem position on the pitch I'll be looking at. But hopefully, long-term, a full season next to Agbadou gives him a little bit more composure.
Yeah, he's not a player I'm looking to. I mean, long-term, we'd need to upgrade the whole, well, at least 2 of the 3 back line, but he's not a player at the moment I think we desperately need to go in and replace. I think there's other problems ahead of him. So I'm comfortable with him playing. He's strong. He's an athlete. But I just think collectively there's a problem across the back three.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to Agbadou. As you mentioned then, Nocky, this is a guy he's looked a little bit relaxed pre-season. As we talked about last year, I think Tyler's almost said it as well, that he almost looks like he's bored in games when he's not proper challenged. He had that ball in the second half when he was challenged. He put the afterburners on, shrugged the guy out of the way. He almost needs to be busy to be, to keep his full concentration. I think he's a fantastic footballer. I love the way he drills low passes into sort of the midfielders and the forwards' feet. That's something I really like what that does. I think we scored a few goals from that last year. But yeah, probably not at his best pre-season, but I think this is someone that actually turns up on the day and delivers when he needs to.
Yeah, he's a quality centre half and he's a great signing for us. I think where I'm a little bit concerned with him this season is positionally he's not been great, and that was one of his strengths last season. He read the game very well. He intercepted very well. He cut those through balls out. He seems to have lost a little bit of that positional sense, and the goal we conceded was a simple ball into his position where we've just let him go, and the kids finished really well. So that's my kind of nervousness at the minute with him. He's switched off to the point where he's not tracking the runners the way he used to. But it is only pre-season. I do think he finds it all very easy. And he seems like the kind of player who finds pre-season a little bit boring and just wants to go into the main event. So hopefully next week we'll see a better version of Agbadu.
Hopefully so. I mean, he's only got to find sort of 80% of the levels he found last year, and he's going to be one hell of a player. And judging by the pre-season and the squad, he's going to be massively important to Wolves this year. Moving on to the right centre-back position, probably the side that struggled. I'm not saying it was Doherty's fault, but his combination with him in front of him. Wolves found it a struggle on this side of the pitch. And your opinion on Matt Doherty's performance?
I think there's Doherty individually, then there's Doherty with Hoover. I think the relationship between those two is an absolute disaster. The amount of times they just put a simple ball through them two, and it split the back line. And Man City would have had scouts there. They would have identified that, and they're going to come at us down that side as often as they possibly can next week. And I just thought Doherty got caught up the pitch a couple of times, and Hoover didn't drop in to support him. Agbadu ended up having to drop across, which left space in behind him. It's that lack of pace element with Doherty, and he's there on merit. And I know that he deserves his shirt. The fact that we're 8 years in and he's still our right centre back, or he is our right centre back currently, he's not great. He's not a great reflection on where we are as a club. But if that's going to be our right side going forward, you're going to have to prepare yourself for a really difficult season, because they got ripped to pieces by a team who were probably playing 80% within themselves, and they was very comfortable. There was a lot of space, and it was very easy to get through them too. So that's going to be a problem area for us. And I thought we looked better when Mosquera came on. I think when Mosquera came on, he's more of an athlete. He's stronger. He's physical. He shut that space down a little bit more. But when it was Doherty and Hoover, forget about it. They're not going to cope.
Just really going back to what you said the other side regarding Totti and Aït-Nouri, I think we're seeing the same with Doherty and Nelson Semedo. Nelson Semedo is certainly someone that split the fan base in terms of opinions, but defensively, positionally, and pace-wide, he'd get Doherty out of trouble. He'd be there. 100%. He was someone that was excellent at carrying the ball in the middle third. We all know his end product at the business end of the pitch wasn't great, but as a one-on-one defender, as a support for Doherty, that worked really well for the second half of the season. So we're seeing now really how badly we're missing him. And someone like Doherty there that isn't going to be protected by a particularly good defensive fullback, it is going to expose him.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point. I mean, last season, we know Semedo's numbers going forward weren't great, but he almost left it to the Aït-Nouri side, and he just kind of supported. And the amount of times he dropped him behind the third defender, whether it was Doherty or whoever it was, he just dropped in and covered that space and just shut them down a little bit. Hoover doesn't do that. He tends to try and sit up on the halfway line as much as he can. And when he does come back, he's not particularly effective. He doesn't seem to really know what to do when he drops back into that position. I'm almost at the point, and I know we won't do it at this stage, where I'd be tempted just to put Rodrigo Gomez over there. I know it's not his most comfortable side, but he's got a little bit more pace and he's got almost a little bit more experience now at this level. Just give us a bit more.
He's certainly better in the final third.
Yeah, I would agree, and he'll give you that out ball as well. I mean, Hoover's delivery I thought was atrocious. He had one yesterday where he could have played it to Strand Larsen. Might be slightly harsh. It wasn't a terrible ball, but it's into the keeper's hands. But I just don't think he delivers that final ball. And I think there was one moment in the second half where he just put the ball straight through for them, and they ended up running in on goal. He's just. I don't want to be overly critical of Hoover because he is still a young man, but I think there's a reason he's been on so many loans and no one's tried to buy him. He's just not quite at the level that we need him to be at.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We'll move on to the midfield, and while we're on that side of the pitch, let's move on to Hoover. Now, I don't want this to be a slagging match. I have nothing against Hoover. I just don't think he's good enough at this time to be playing Premier League football in that position. It's been a real struggle for him pre-season. Now, I know he had a reasonable season in France and he's had a couple of decent loans. They liked him at Stoke. His numbers last year were pretty good. The French league isn't as bad as people make out, and they quite liked him. However, as a wing back in pre-season, I mean, he may prove us wrong, but for me, this is the biggest area of concern going into next week, because that right-hand side has offered nothing going forwards, and defensively it has been vulnerable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, I don't want to slaughter the kid. I think he's going to have a good career in football, but just not at this level. And we've seen it before when he came in. I think we were playing Liverpool and Aït-Nouri controlled Salah for the whole game. Got cramp, had to come off. Hoover come on for 3 minutes, and within 2 minutes he'd switched off. Salah got in behind him, bang, it's 1-0, the game's gone. He switches off. He hasn't got that footballing brain that you need to play that, because that's a really difficult position to play. You've got to be up and down, you've got to be positionally right, you've got to affect the attack, but you've also got to be willing to drop back into defence, and I just don't think he's got the capability of doing that. So that, yeah, it's the right hand side frightens the life out of me. I don't think we've got that. I don't think we've got any solidity over there at all. I think with Wolf and with Totti, you've got a couple of decent, strong lads on that side. Doherty and Hoover, anyone with half a... I mean, if it was me next week and I'm Guardiola, I'm sticking Doku out wide and I'm just telling him to run and just keep giving him the ball, because you're going to get all the space you need in behind him. So that's the bit that we're going to get hit on badly. And as I say, it's not a slagging match on Hoover, but the reality is you're either good enough or you're not good enough, and that kid's just not good enough for this level. Yeah,
it looks tough for him, and for the first time this pre-season, he looked quite downbeat as well yesterday. I know it just has been tough for him, but you know what?
Struggled, didn't he? Just struggled.
Yeah, he did. He just didn't look like he believed either. There was a confidence issue as well. But you know what, though? I hope these words are stuffed down our throats next week, because he's got something. I don't think we will, but good luck to him. I hope he proves us wrong. Moving on to the centre pair, we'll start on the right-hand side. I don't think he's always over there, but Andre, now, I think as well, Andre suffered as a result of having to cover for Hoover and Doherty. I think Andre is absolutely brilliant. But again, there's no real eight ball on that side of the pitch. And I just think it's not dragging down to other people's levels. But if Doherty's out of position, he's been struggling because Hoover's not there, it's sort of going to pull Andre into that situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not dragging him down to that level. It was dragging him out of position because he was having to go over to that side and cover, and he doesn't want to be there. It was a typical Andre performance. You can see the quality of those two in midfield, and they're head and shoulders above everyone else on the pitch, with the exception of Arias, who I think looks good. Didn't quite have the snap in midfield that we usually have, which is probably the fact it was a friendly, and you're not trying to snap anyone or drop any reducers in at this stage. But they didn't quite have they weren't the same units that they actually were last time, when the last few games of the season. And I think as well, every time they picked up the ball, they were struggling for options ahead of them. They didn't have that movement that they were used to, and they've still got to get used to Fer Lopez. They've got to get used to Arias's movement as well. And Strand Larsen was incredibly deep. He was almost sitting as a third central midfielder at times. So it wasn't a great performance by either of them, but they were still a cut above the rest.
Yeah, I agree. You are listening and watching episode 133 of the Wolves Report. Mark Pace says, welcome back, guys. It's good to be back. Hopefully we can talk about a positive Wolves performance soon, but no wins in pre-season isn't filling in much hope. I'm joined by our club captain, Mark Knock. As always, we do the show live to get your comments. Your comments are a big part of the show. Your tactical feedback, your comments, your insults, they're all welcome to a reasonable level, and they are very much appreciated and part of this live episode that we do. Nocky, moving on to the other part of the centre midfield, João Gomez, as you mentioned then, those guys are probably the two best players at the moment. They were two of the better players on Saturday, but what did you make of João Gomez and him looking like he's going to be the captain for next season?
Yeah, and I'm not against that at all. I think he comes across as a really good, honest, intelligent lad. I mean, he's had problems with his speech, which is well documented, and he's worked through that, and he's found ways to cope with that, and he's now opening up his own school, I believe, in Brazil around that as well. So he seems like a good guy. So I'm not against him having the armband at all. I think he'll treat you with respect the way that we would like any player to who's fortunate enough to wear that. He was pretty good, to be fair, similar to Andre. They're both very similar players, aren't they? I think Tyler's touched on it a few times. My only nervousness about those two is they're very good, solid units, but they're not going to give you a lot going forward. So you're very reliant on the players in front of them. But we also, with the way I think it's going to go for us defensively this season, you can't afford to lose either of them because they're going to be that shield that we're going to need across our back line. So I thought he was good. He was probably the pick of the two. Didn't do a great deal wrong. He was his usual self, and he was certainly playing within himself with it being a friendly. But yeah, if he's captain, then there'll be no complaints from me.
Yeah, likewise, I've got no issue with him being captain. I think he's a success story to anyone to sort of working through any issues like that. He's a real example and a leader, and you can see the guy's a family guy. He gives it all out there. He says he loves being here, and he's certainly someone that leads by example. So yeah, if he's captain next season, that's absolutely fine. Probably not the most vocal, but certainly someone that plays by example of how they play. Moving on to the debutants, our new Wolfman. Unfortunately, he seemed to partially knock himself out with a headbutting the floor with an unfortunate challenge. So it's quite difficult to give a full overview of him, Nocky. I kind of was excited to see him late in the second half because of apparently of his exceptional fitness levels. I wanted to see that engine late in the game when other people are tired and he's still going. We didn't get to see that. I don't know if it's concussion related. If it is, that may mean he may miss next week. Hopefully it was a precaution and he's okay.
Yeah, from what I saw of him, I liked. He put in a really good ball with his weaker foot, which perhaps
great cross.
We should have done better with. Looked pretty controlled, composed, good first touch. I like what I could see with him. It was just a shame he got carted off the way he did. But in saying that, I do think that Hugo Bueno had a relatively good game when he came on as well. So if he is going to play against City, then I'm not quite as nervous about him playing as I maybe was before the start of this game. But he looks a player who's got a bit of quality about him, and hopefully he's okay to start next week.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, we're all YouTube scouts, aren't we? And one thing I did see from him, that he looks like he can deliver a ball. He looks like he gets up and down. He looks tenacious. He gets involved with assists, and he can score a few goals as well. I think he scored some goals with his right foot. So as the season goes on, hopefully he can build a relationship with John Arias. And on the subject of Arias, our Colombian international, your take on what probably one of Wolves' probably now most talented players that we have?
He's going to be our best player this season. He's, as I said earlier, he's the sort of player that we'd now be selling because he looks like a ready-made Premier League footballer. He's got some real quality about him. He's strong. He's powerful. He's got great feet. He got into the penalty area, probably should have scored, but he dropped a couple of defenders and then shot it straight at the keeper. I really like the look of him. I think he's a player that the fans are going to fall in love with, and he's going to be good in that role, kind of floating behind Strand Larsen and linking the play together. I think this is a really good coup for us getting him in. You're on mute, son.
Sorry, my dog's been walking around the room, panting and making all kinds of noises.
I thought that was you, to be honest. I thought your age, mate. You shouldn't be panting like that.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be that kind of show. That's on my other podcast. So if anyone wants to do that, it'll be in Nocky's bio later on. With Arias, he's one of the players I didn't really know about. Got to hold my hands up. And then obviously I wasn't particularly keen on the Club World Cup. But like many people, I had no football to watch, and I slowly got drawn in and I was watching more games. And you've seen some highlights and some goals and you thought, yeah, he's all right. And then you saw Wolves linked and you thought, no chance. But the fact that Wolves have got him, it's one of the few positives of pre-season so far. I think the fact that he's 28 in the next month or so has probably put a few people off. Still, in football terms, that's not particularly old. But you can already see he's got a touch of class. He's got a bit about him. He wins free kicks. He wants to make things happen. You saw his goal last week, his finish. Bit of Steve Ball strength. Got the space in front of him and thumped it home. He's going to be someone that is going to be big for us this year, that we're going to need to protect and look after. So, yeah, I think he's a good player. He was all, you know what, he was all right. I don't think he had a lot of the ball. What he's interested in is he seems to be on a lot of the free kicks as well. I think he's going to be key for us, and I didn't mind him at all. But yeah, we're going to need a bit more from him, Strand Larsen and Fer Lopez, but I'm not going to be overcritical from the sort of the last pre-season friendly. Moving on to the other one, he's the left side, the right-sided inverted 10 in Fer Lopez. This has created a bit of debate on the group chat, Nocky. I know Mark Cole-Bully, he says he likes him as a footballer. I like him. Tyler's not so sold. What's your take on him? What did you make of him yesterday?
I like him. I think he's a good, strong player. He's got good feet, a bit of pace as well, reads the game well. I think Tyler's nervousness is around the age and the development side of things, because Rodrigo Gomez in pre-season last year, he looked like Pele, didn't he? He was banging goals in for fun. But then when it comes to the actual nitty gritty of the Premier League, it's very easy to get bullied, and players like him are going to get physically tested, I think, especially when you're coming up against some of them big centre halves and those big stoppers that they have in some of these teams, and he's going to feel that next week. But from what I've seen in pre-season so far, I don't see a better option on that side. But I do think we're going to have to accept that you're probably good 12, 18 months away from seeing what I think will be a very, very good footballer. He's like a little mix of Neto and Strand Larsen for me. He's got a bit of strength, he's got power, but he's got pace and good feet as well. So I think he's a player in the future we're going to be knocking back some big bids for. But it's important that we don't get too excited with him and expect too much too soon. I'd like to see us get another player in on that side to support him, because being a young man the way he is, you're going to have moments where it's not quite going to fall for you. He's going to have drop in and out of games. He's going to have patches where he doesn't affect things at all. So I'd like to see someone come in just to support him a little bit on that side. But for me, as it stands at the minute with the squad we've got, he starts next week.
Yeah, I think, again, we've talked about players next to people having knock-on effects. He's someone else that I think will really thrive from having a higher quality right wing back, someone that can make that run, that intelligent run in the right space. It'll take a run, he'll be able to cut inside and shoot or drop a ball in. I think he's a really talented footballer. For me, he's got a bit of the Trincãos about him. He reminds me of that sort of, not overly quick, but he can carry the ball well, looks a very tidy footballer. Again, I know Trincãos is someone that sort of split opinion, but I thought that Trincãos was a very nice footballer. You've only got to look at his career after Wolves and what he's doing and how he's playing. Fo Lopez, I like him. He's a bit of a unicorn in terms of he's a number 10, but he's 6'1", 6'2". He's a big lad, and I think as the season goes on, he'll have more of an impact. It might take a bit of acclimatisation, and like you say, he's certainly the best one to be starting now. Do you want Manetzi in there? Manetzi opens up space. Or would you want the more of a footballer in there? It's a tough one, isn't it? But I like Fo Lopez, and Wolves haven't spent 20 million in for no reason. I think he'll be a good player. It might take it some time to settle, but I think there's definitely a player in there. Moving on to the last of the starters, Nocky, Jørgen Strand Larsen. Jørgen had a fantastic end to the season, second half of the season. He particularly stepped up when Matheus Cunha was suspended for being an absolute wally. I think as time's gone on, Nocky, I think he holds the ball up a bit better. I think his knockdowns are better. I think he's someone that looks strong, and with the right delivery, will have another good season.
Yeah, he's physical now. I think one of my only criticisms of him last season was that he wasn't quite physical enough. He got bullied, whereas he sticks himself in there a little bit more now. He came a little bit deeper than I would have liked. I get the tactic, but you need Arias and Lopez to be running off him if you're going to drop him deeper, because there was nothing in behind. But yeah, I like Strand Larsen. I think he's not had the best pre-season. I think he scored one goal, but he's a quality player. The numbers he got for his first season's absolutely exceptional, in my opinion. Especially in a team that was struggling for most of the season. So you give him the service, he'll score you the goals. We need to get the relationship with him and Arias. I think that's going to be absolutely vital for us. But if you give him service, you know he can put the ball in the back of the net. So he's going to be very important. Again, there's nervousness around the squad and the positions. If we lose him, I don't think we have anyone who can play there or do anything even remotely like him, because Sasha Kalajic is going to go. Hwang's going to go. So we could do with a bit of support in that position. I know we've got Main, but I wouldn't be touching him this season.
We've not seen him in pre-season at all, and that tells you where he's at. We've not seen him at all. We might see him in the cup, but the fact
he should be out on loan. He should be out on loan, cutting his teeth in the lower leagues.
We can't learn him yet because he's a guaranteed sub at the moment. That's how thin on the ground we are. No disrespect to the lad, he looks a talent, but you're right. He needs to be playing regular football. We might see him in the cup. Yeah,
exactly that. He's clearly got some potential, but we don't want a Nathan Fraser or a Chireva situation where they're getting 2 minutes here and there. You're just affecting the development. I want him out playing football and understanding and getting bullied by some big League One centre half, so that you can really start developing yourself as a player and physically and mentally. But as it stands at the minute, he's probably our only real backup to Strand Larsen, even though I think he'll probably play sort of slightly deeper and wider than Strand Larsen, but he's one of the only options we've got to perhaps drop into that area. So that's a position that we need to be looking at in the last few weeks of the window.
Just a quickie one. You mentioned Sasa Kalajic then. Now, I think he's had 3 cruciates. He's desperately unlucky. He seems like one of the most tremendous humans. That he's very, very popular. It's going to be a struggle for him to stay fit. I hope he does. People talking about him getting a loan. I can understand that. Do you know what, though, Nocker? Yeah. when he's come on, he's not had a bad pre-season. I don't expect him to be starting games.
No.
If he was the 9th man on the bench to give that alternative option, I would not be against that. Now, I'd love to hear people's comments on that. I actually think he's done. He looks neat and tidy. He's pressing okay. He's never going to be the quickest or flying past people. I think he's done okay, and I think that's a really good option that not many Premier League teams have. Is he going to be happy with that? I don't know. Can he stay fit? I don't know. I think for the moment, yeah, I'm okay with him staying and being an option off the bench.
I really like him, and it'd be quite funny if we were in a situation where maybe you're a goal down and you bring him on and you've got Strand Larsen and Sasha Kalajic up front, and you're just nailing balls in the box from everywhere because you've got two big lumps up there. I'm not against it at all. I mean, there's talk of him going for sort of options of a 4 or 5 million, and for that money you may as well keep him because you're not going to replace him for that. And I think he's an option. I think he's a little bit quicker than I thought he was. He's got decent feet. We know he can finish, so I absolutely wouldn't be against keeping him, but I've got a feeling he's probably going to move on the same as Fabio.
Yeah, I would say so. I think those names you mentioned, Sasha, Fabio, Hwang, I think they'll all be gone, which is fine. I mean, we'll come on to the pre-season in a bit, but who's on the bench then? We're having Tyler on the bench, you're on the bench. We're at a ridiculous stage of where we're at. Anyway, this is episode 133 of the Wolves Report with Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester. Currently got 1,684 live listeners listening across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days. Drop us a follow or a like. If you don't follow us already, your support is very much appreciated. The live comments as well. This is a big part of the show. We like to do our shows live to get the interaction with fellow fans like yourselves. Knocky, let's try and get this graphic off the screen. It's the first time I've done this, so hopefully it works. There we are. We've spoiled everyone's Sunday evening with our faces on there. Now, what else have we got to talk about yet? We've talked about the Vigo match, the player analysis. Let's do a little pre-season roundup. Now, me personally, I don't really get over carried away with friendlies. I did enjoy the Steve Ball friendly against Man United when he scored them in the mid-90s. What's not to like about a Steve Ball goal? But it is hard to get excited about pre-season. However, throughout pre-season, you want to see your team developing fitness, shape, pattern, sort of routines of play and identity. The bits of the play that Wolves were good at last year in terms of the spine, you can see he's still there. But the lack of quality, we don't know about Wolf yet, the lack of quality in the wing-back positions, a massive concern. We're worried about Fer Lopez and Arias. There's no options to cover them from at the moment. We are desperately thin on the ground. We'll talk about the players in a minute. But in terms of the shape and the pattern, okay, has he just been screaming what we need throughout pre-season? Because I've not really seen any progress. I've just seen players get more and more frustrated. I've seen that you saw the look of Andre. He looks a frustrated figure, and I don't want one of my best players looking like that in pre-season.
I mean, the team's not changed all that much through pre-season, especially the last sort of 3 games. I was at Stoke. It was okay.
Of course you were.
But we weren't. It's so hard, isn't it? Because you could turn up and you could beat Stoke 4-0, and have you learned anything in that game? Or you could turn up and it's 1-1, and first penalty we've had for 400 years, and we missed it. But it's I don't know. It just felt very slow, very, very kind of tepid. And then we had the game at Walsall, and that was just so slow. And we lost that game 3-1. And I was in the ground, and you could feel kind of. There was almost a resignation when the goals went in, even though it's a pre-season friendly. The third one hit the net and half the ground emptied. It was just, there's just a feeling of almost inevitability about the whole thing at the moment. And then, of course, you turn up to Molineux yesterday. You've got the Diogo Jota tribute, which I thought was brilliant. The video they put on before kickoff I thought was excellent, and well done to whoever did that.
Well done to Wolves, very good.
But you want a little bit of a send-off, don't you? You want a little bit of this is finishing off pre-season now, we're going to leave you with something. And we gave away a wretched goal. We put in a half-baked performance, and no one looked particularly standout. We were okay. So, yes, you shouldn't get too carried away. It's pre-season. They're games where it's more about fitness. And if you offer you a win or a cruciate ligament, you're going to forget the win and just protect your players, aren't you? So it's about making sure everyone gets through it. But you want to see a little bit more. We didn't look fit to me. I thought that Celta Vigo looks a lot fitter than we did. We looked slow. We looked lethargic. And some of the players there look like they know they're not going to be there for much longer. That's how it felt to me. And probably the player I've looked at who actually did impress me for spells was Goncalo Guedes, and now we've got rid of him. So it's been very stop and start as far as pre-season goes. But we've not had any major injuries, and we've come through it relatively unscathed. But it's probably, if you're Fosun or if you're Jeff Shue, if you're one of those representatives now, and you're looking at that squad and you're thinking we're okay here, then something's gone badly wrong, because it's blatantly obvious the quality we've lost and the impact we've lost from the bench. You've not done anything to even remotely address that at this moment in time. So you would like to think the phone's ringing off the hook now, trying to get players in.
Yeah, I just think I mean, we'll go on to the player side in a minute, but in terms of the patterns of pre-season and getting the shape together, everyone, the spine's all right, but other than the last few games, there's been no creativity. Arias has had a little bit more, not had really much time. I think Fer Lopez looks a footballer, but I think he'll be better when he's got better players around him. It's annoying that you've given this manager his first pre-season to work with his players, and he's still working with most of the same players as last year that were in the first team, and only a couple of new additions. Granted, everyone's saying it's a difficult window, but I don't want to judge our standards by everyone else's low levels. You know what I mean? We're Wolverhampton Wanderers, we're an established Premier League team. The whole world of recruitment is out there. There are many players that will want to play in the Premier League. Wolves need to be doing better. So let's go on to that player side now, Nocky, and talk about the pre-season. In terms of arrivals and departures, we mentioned most of the players. So Jurgen Strand Larsen become a permanent fixture. I'm really happy with the way he ended last season. I think he's going to develop. I think he'll be better with players around him. It was bizarre. He was actually better without Cunha in the team. You got more from him then. More of a team ethic than like individual brilliance from Cunha, which he was capable of. Obviously, we've had Arias. I think he's going to be our key player, as you mentioned. Fer Lopez, I'm not saying a bit part player. He's starting at the moment. I think he's technically a very, very good player. And then obviously we've got a new Wolfman. Hope he scores a hat-trick away at Port Vale, but he'll have to be in the cup as well. So I'm relatively okay with the four that have come in. Obviously 3 new ones, one confirmed. I just don't think it's anywhere enough. Have you got anything to add to that before we talk about the departures?
No, I'm happy with the players that have come in. We just need more.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now, I'm going to give out some rare credit to Wolves on this bit now, and I might get hammered for it, but bear with me. This clear out has been a long time coming. There's been so many players. I'm not going to say hangers on because they're footballers and it's their job, but there's been so many players on the outside, so many players that just haven't been good enough, so many poor transfers, and this window we're doing something about it. And I'm really pleased about that. It's huge money off the wages. It's a chance for many fresh faces. However, Nocky, there is a caveat to that. And the point is, for me, you have to have signings ready to go to bring in. We knew Aït-Nouri was going. We knew Semedo was going, despite his pretend 4-year deal or whatever that was. We knew Cunha was going. We knew Sarabia was going. We know this quality, a massive impact sub, and Semedo massively important, Aït-Nouri massively important, Cunha, as much as of what I think about him and how he behaved, a brilliant player for Wolves last year. We knew these players were going. So if you're going to let people go, why aren't the replacements ready?
And that's the frustration. I thought we'd done the right thing in moving these players off early. No problem with Cunha, Aït-Nouri and Semedo going. We've got money for 2 of them. We've cleared a big chunk of wages off, and predominantly, if players want to leave, there's no point keeping them. I think we could have got a little bit more money for them, but it is what it is. But we did those deals early enough to make you think we were going to bring in some players. The problem we've got is because of the model that we follow, the self-sufficient kind of, we want to make as much money as we can. We're not going to overspend on players, which means the players we bring in have got to be the right price for us. So I don't think we were ever going to go in and spend a truckload of money early on. The Arias deal and the Fer Lopez deal, they were a good price for us. I think we got them both for a really good chunk of money. But everything else is going to be closer to the kind of deadline. I think it'll be a bit of a trolley dash the last sort of 3-4 days of the window, because we want to get players as cheap as we can, and everyone kind of keeps their powder dry at this stage of the season. Your only clubs who are really spending mass amounts of money are your Liverpools and your Man Uniteds, because they want to buy players who are good to go now, like your Cunhas, your Mbuemos, players like that. They don't want to, haggle and negotiate for prices. They want to play the target and they go and sign, and we're not in a position to do that, because with us, every pound's a prisoner. So we're going to have to be really tight with what we do, really careful, and get those signings late in the day. And from a business model, I understand it. The problem is you sacrifice in August every season, and you're ending up you're getting into September, October, and you're in the bottom three because you've only just started getting your settled team. So I wanted the business done early. There was talk about the penny dropping. That clearly hasn't happened. But having seen Jeff's podcast, I think we can probably all understand why. So I think there will be more signings. So I'm loath to absolutely slaughter the transfer window, because we could bring in 5 or 6 more players and we're both going to look like a couple of donuts if
wouldn't be the first time, son.
If we've absolutely writ it off now. So I think from a planning perspective, there will be more players coming in, but I think they're going to be nearer the last couple of days of the window. Not the model I want us to follow, but it's the kind of model that I expect us to follow.
Yeah, I get it. There's a really good question, a sort of point raised by Chris Worsfold that mentions stats in August and all that kind of stuff that we'll discuss in a minute. But just seeing out that bit of the transfer window this summer, this isn't an option. Wolves have to bring in players, because if they don't, as it is now, the squad, it's really close. It's as close as we are to going down. I know
How many do we need?
I think it's a minimum of 4 or 5, mate. A minimum. Nothing else is acceptable.
So we're bringing 4 or 5. We probably end overall. We probably end 9 players down, 8, 9 players down on what we had last season. Which, yes, as you rightly said, we've got to clear out some of the deadwood, but you can make 5 substitutes now. This is a squad game, and what we've done is we've lost the impact from the bench. So you look at someone like a Sarabia, who he wasn't my cup of tea all the time, but look at the impact he made. He came on against Man United, bends a free kick into the top corner, wins the game, comes on against Ipswich, scores 1, makes 1, we win the game, we relegate Ipswich, keep ourselves up. He came on against Villa and helped to see that game out by physically dominating them in midfield, which is something you don't really expect. There's been lots of games where he's affected it. Tommy Doyle, I don't think he's good enough for us. However, the impact he made against Brighton, he set up the second goal against Man United. These are things that you need from the bench. We're going to struggle to put an 11 plus 4 or 5 together for the rest of the season. And you're going to get injuries. You're going to get suspensions. Look at how hard our midfielders play. You're going to lose those players. You need 2 quality players in every position at the moment. We're probably 2 injuries away from not scoring a goal across the patch, because we haven't got enough options to do that. In my opinion, this is the weakest squad we've had since returning back to the Premier League. I think this is the worst we've ever looked. And I put out a tweet yesterday, and some people took it the wrong way, that it was unhelpful, but it was around the team where we started off against Everton when we had Raul, we had Jota, we had Adama, we had Martinho, Neves, comparing that to where we are now. And we look like a championship side who's come up and just having a go now. And the difference in quality from where we were to where we are is absolutely atrocious in terms of the drop-off. And incrementally, we're getting worse and worse every season. I've said it for the last 2 or 3 seasons. We've been circling the drain. It feels like, looking at the squad as it is now, we're halfway down the plug hole. Hopefully, it will look a lot different when we hit September. But I think we need to have a decent season where perhaps we're not involved in the relegation battle. I think we need 6 players. I expect us to get 3, maybe 4 at a push.
Really, really good points there, Nocky. Really good points. What I would say in terms of the squad, to give a bit of respect to the players we have, I think the likes of Agbadu, I'd say Totti, I'd say all the senior players that are first starters, João Gomez, Andre, Strand Larson, I'd say those guys are really frustrated as well, because when you don't have that outball, that quality, those guys next to you used to have, you're limiting your options yourself as a footballer. So you're not enabling your best players to play their best, because that ball's just going to keep coming back, and it's frustrating. So I do think the core, the spine of our team is far better than any of those 3 that have come up. João Gomez, Andre, Agbadu, Strand Larson, I'd even put Jose Sarr in there. That spine, I think, is more than good enough. With good players, that's a mid-table spine. However, what's around them at the moment Arias, I think, will be fine. Fer Lopez, going to need to see a bit more. Right wing back, nowhere near it. Wolf, we need to see. So there's quite a lot of improvement. I do think our spine is very good. So in terms of that being relegation fodder, I don't think that's the case. I just think they need the quality around them to let them perform their best, because we've got 2 Brazilian internationals, a fantastic centre-back, a Norwegian international who's had a good second half of the season. Those are good footballers, Nocky. Unfortunately, they've been let down by the recruitment team or Jeff Shee or whoever it is. Granted, I'm going to give a bit of slack to the sort of director of football because he came in late on, because I'm sure work starts in January and I'm not sure would have had the same list that Matt Hobbs would have had for departed. So I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack for starting later in the day. I do think we have a good spine, but we need to support the good players we have with better ones already.
Yeah, I think you make really good points, and I don't disagree. However, when you look at what we finished the season with, we're weaker now than we finished the season. I mean, you take out Cunha, Semedo, Ait-Nouri, so we probably need 2 or 3 more players just to be as bad as we were last year. And although we finished strongly in terms of our 6 in a row, which you can't be relying on that every season, those Brazilian internationals and your Strand Larsen, even with the scoring goals, they spent most of the season in the bottom 3. So now you've removed that level of quality out of them. And momentum, I'm a big believer that momentum's a massive thing in football. And you've got a team like Leeds who are coming up with momentum. Ellen Road can be a bit of a game changer, whether you like Leeds or not. That's probably the loudest.
You know what, you feel alive when you go to Ellen Road. I do like that away day.
Absolutely.
Do you know what, though? And I respect it. Do I like Leeds? No, I don't really like anyone apart from Wolves. But I do respect going to Leeds. But anyway, less about that.
Yeah, and that's the point. You've got Ipswich, who had back-to-back promotions. I think they were always going to go down. You had Leicester with their financial problems, who were always likely to struggle. This year, I think Burnley and Sunderland go. I do think them 2 go, and I think Brentford are the team that probably should be most nervous. But the teams who've coming up, you just need one of them to put a run together like we did and get yourself clear of it, and all of a sudden you're a little bit nervous, you get sucked into it, and you can't always be reliant on a run like Pereira put together. So yes, I think we're better than they are, and I think we're probably, if we could bring in 4 players and no one gets injured for the course of the season or suspended, I think we're okay. But you've got to be realistic to know
it's Premier League football, League Cup, FA Cup. We want to crack at the cups, because I don't want to be sitting there miserably in 16th, 17th all season. I want to go for something. I want to dream. Look at Crystal Palace. They dare to believe. Look at them. And now they won the Charity Shield as well. Fair play to Crystal Palace, by the way. You are listening and watching episode 133 of the Wolves Report. Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester. We've talked about the Celta Vigo match, give you our player analysis, talked about the pre-season, we've rounded that up, talked about the arrivals and departures. Nocky, shall we move on to some questions? And this is an absolute belter from Chris. He mentioned this on Twitter a month or so ago, maybe, but this is an absolute cracker. Chris Worsfold says, a 5% win ratio in August since promotion, 1 win in a 7-year period, the worst record of all 92 clubs. It's such a unique statistic. It's undeniable. Wow. Now,
why have you done that, Chris? We've got Man City next week, and he's dropped a stat like that.
Anyway, just a quick shout out to my dad. I popped round his earlier on. He said, you're near for a beer for the podcast. And after reading that, I think you're right. So cheers, Dad. Thank you for the beer. And cheers, Chris. Nocky, that's all yours.
But it's not an accident, is it? I mean, we spoke about it earlier. It's the model of what we do. We very often go into August, and then when we hit September, we look completely different because, as I said earlier, we do our business as late as we can to do it as cheap as we can. So we're always playing catch up. It's the way we operate, and I don't think that's going to change. Our fixtures in August this year look better, certainly than they did last year. The first 6 we had last year were absolutely horrendous.
It doesn't start particularly well, mate, does it? Bournemouth away is not an easy game. Man City at home is a stinker. We could quite easily be sitting on nothing with no goals going into Everton, and then you're under pressure.
Your nervousness is that you play City, you get a right doing, and you're bottom of the league, and your goal difference is gone for the rest of the season already. But it's no surprise to me that stats there. I didn't know that was as bad as it was, but it's an absolute full reason is because of the operating model that we currently follow.
Chris, it's a great one. I don't particularly enjoy reading it, but it's hard to disagree with numbers and figures and stats. So that would suggest to me that Wolves start the season slowly and they don't do a lot of their business because Wolves are still a Premier League side, so they must improve. But as a lot of people said, almost sort of writing off the Man City game before, but hopefully the players don't have that attitude next week. I'm sure they won't. Chris, thank you for being part of the show. Top man Sean Smith says to us, do we think Vitor Pereira is better than 50-50 to be here come the next transfer window? I do think Wolves will sign players. I think we're all frustrated because we want the business doing. Granted, there's a lot more going on in the background than we're probably aware of. We'd like to... it's hard to be forgiving for being in this situation. But Nocky, I think he'll be here. I think come the end of the window, he'll have had the majority of what he wants. I think he'll sign his new contract, and I do think he'll be here.
He doesn't generally stick around for too long. And I'm with you. I do think we'll sign players because I think he would have walked by now if we hadn't, because no one wants a CV of a club like a Southampton last season. So I think he'll be here. Yeah, I think he'll want to see out the season. However, results may dictate that Fosun pull the trigger if it does go wrong, because your manager takes the hit, don't they? That's a reality. But yeah, I don't see him walking.
Yeah, me neither. Sean, thank you for being part of the show. Let's move on to the next one. Borley and John Dent say, do we actually have a player fit to be captain for the season? Where are our leaders? It's a fair question. Now, traditionally, your captain is the chest beater. He's clattering people. He's in people's faces. I'm not sure those captains happen as much, but in terms of leadership credentials, do we have a lot of those guys? I think there's a lot of example setters. I don't think there's a lot of vocal guys out there. I know there's a leadership group. I'm not sure a lot of them actually get in the team, but it's a really valid point. Do we have people taking the game by the scruff of the neck? Not at the moment. It's a valid point by Borley and John Dent. Okay.
Yeah, I think if Doherty was in the plans for the season, I think he's captain. So I think it probably speaks volumes the fact that he's not going to give him the armband. Agbadou potentially.
He was captain at his last club as well, and I think
he's one.
Marshall was vice captain. Yeah, I
think Totti potentially. I like having a centre half or a central midfielder as captain. I don't like seeing a goalkeeper as captain. I'd rather have an outfield player. So I think João Gomez feels like the right choice. If not, you may be looking at Agbadou, but I think based on what I've seen so far this pre-season and the reasons we've already kind of mentioned, it'd be Gomez for me.
Yeah, I'm happy with João Gomez. I just think as someone that's signed, did he sign a new 4 or 5 year deal with no release clause?
Yeah,
he tweets regularly. I love you guys. I love being here. That's the kind of guy I want at my football club. And those moments, and I know again it splits opinion, but late in a game when we're winning, which hopefully happens soon, and he's celebrating them tackles and putting out a play. I just love that attitude. I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, hopefully he's the guy for us, Borley and John. But thank you for being part.
Only nervousness though, haven't we got rid of our last 4 captains?
Yeah, that's a dirty tradition you don't want to carry on. But Nocky, we've not even started the season yet, so let's not get carried away. Old Spiky says, what if anything is Uncle George likely to bring to the club in the coming days? Does he have any influence at all right now? Any rabbits likely to be pulled out of the hat? Do you think? I'll answer this one, Nocky. So if I put my very limited business head on, which is very limited indeed, what I would say is that Fosun own what I believe is 20% of Gestifute. Now, Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Premier League are a far better option for Gestifute to have players, to sell players, to bring players out. So do I see George Mendes helping Wolves? Yeah, I really do. I think Mendes will have an impact as the window goes on. We've not seen a lot yet. I do think he'll help provide some players. It's a really good point, what Old Spiky says, Nocky, but without George Mendes, there'd have been no Neves, there'd have been no Jota, there'd have been no Willy Bolly, there'd have been no Cavallero, there'd have been no Costa. That dream team that came up in the years that followed were because, and granted, a rare acknowledgement to Fosun, they partnered with an agent, a powerful agent, and got Wolves some fantastic players, which put Wolves in a position to have a fantastic few years. Granted, that's a long time ago, but I think it's important that needs to be acknowledged, and the influence that George Mendes had on the success that Wolves had them years ago.
Yeah, I mean, some of the players that came in as a result of Mendes are the best players I've ever seen at Wolves. I mean, when you think about us having that midfield of Moutinho and Neves, Raul up front, and just we had some absolute quality. I agree. I think Mendes will be a big part of us bringing in some players. If you look overall at the window, there's not a huge amount of business been done. There's not a massive chunk of business. I think you'll see it in the last sort of few weeks. It'll ramp up a little bit now, and that's where I would expect the kind of Mendes movement. But we can't be solely reliant on Mendes. We need to do our own business as well. We need to bring in players. But I think he'll have a big influence on what happens in the next few weeks, as well as shifting a few out perhaps as well.
Absolutely. As always, appreciate your question on Spiky. Thank you for being part of the latest episode. Ignat asks, it feels like a game of brickmanship. How long can we go on and not go down? The players are being replaced with younger, less experienced and less capable, also cheaper. I get it. How long can you go on for, Nocky, selling the crown jewels and expecting to be okay? The graph about Wolves' gradual decline over the last few seasons, according to the graph, Wolves probably finish 17th next season and go down the season after. That can't carry on. But what I would say is we've not seen the full effect. Vitor Pereira has brought in someone he wanted as director of football, and we've changed things up a little bit. So should we give it to the end of the season without fully throwing our toys out of the pram? Now, granted, Ignat makes some really, really good points there. And I don't want to write off games against Man City and Bournemouth. But you do have to look as well. The window is still going to be open, and hopefully they have learned some lessons. I'm not sure that they have, but surely we have to keep full opinions until it's closed.
Yeah, I'll keep my powder fully dry until it's closed. Where it feels different this season is when we've lost quality, we've had quality. So you've kind of lost a Neves, you've had Neto, you've lost Neto, you've got Cunha. We've lost Cunha and we've lost Aït-Nouri, and now you're sort of looking around and your best players are holding midfielders. And although they're massively influential in the game, they're not that quality going forward, which will go and win your football matches, which a Cunha was. So we've not really got the backfill that we've had in other seasons. So we're in danger. There's absolutely no doubt. If we didn't sign anyone else now, I think we go down.
It'd be really close, wouldn't it? If you kept everybody fit by some fortune, I think we'd be okay. But football doesn't work that way.
Yeah, the goals worry me. I worry where the goals come from this season, and I worry about us keeping them out the other end as well. We look vulnerable. We look very vulnerable, but I'm not going to say we're going to go down because it could look totally different in 3 weeks. We could have 5-6 players through the door, and all of a sudden we're looking up and thinking, well, how far are we from a European run? You just don't know until we physically get there. But by the end of this window, I think we're going to know the situation we're in. And I think Sunderland have done some really good business, but they were miles off us to start with, I'd say. So they've had to do that just to get anywhere near us. And the same with maybe a Leeds and a Burnley haven't done a great deal. You know, Brozier's come in. I think he's a decent player, but does he win you enough games to keep you up? So I think those teams are a long way behind us. But as I said earlier, they've got momentum. We haven't. We lost, was it 3 of the last 4? So it's going to be interesting to see how the season starts. What you don't want is one of them starting really well and picking up a few results early on, because it puts that extra pressure on you. But the squad's going to look different. The squad's going to look different by September. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, Nocky, about where our expectations are when we're looking below and trying to judge the teams that have got promoted to see if they are worse than us and discussing it on the podcast. But unfortunately, that's where Wolverhampton Wanderers are now. The days of 7th and FA Cup semi-finals seem a long way off. Again, I hope that's clipped at the end of the season. I'm eating my words. I would be delighted. But anyway, Nocky, I don't know if I should have put the light on my fake tan's coming through, but I certainly look darker over here. Maybe I should have put a light on. Ignat, thank you for being part of the show. Greg asks, great to have you back, lads. Thank you for your support as always, Greg. Why do we always write August off again? How many more signings do we need? I think we've talked a lot about August, and we know how slow it's been. Hopefully they prove us wrong and get more few players in. I do think there'll be some players coming, Greg. But it is frustrating to go to Man City looking at least 1 or 2 players short of the starting 11. Jumping on to that bit then, how many players do we need, Nocky?
It depends what we want to achieve. If we want to stay in the Division 4, if we want to push on and try and finish anything from 14th to 10th, I think 5. And if we want to be challenging at the top half of the table, we probably need 6 or 7. There's not a chance in hell we're going to get 6 or 7. So I think for Wolves this season, it's anywhere from 20th up to sort of 16th is realistic based on what I feel like the squad's shaping up at the moment. So I think there'll be there'll be 3, maybe 4 at a push, but I feel like there'll be 3. But if there is 3, it needs to be 3 first teamers. We can't be bringing in squad players now. Whoever comes in between now and the end of the window have got to be ready-made first team players who can come in and impact it. You can't be signing Rodrigo Gomez, who's going to be good in a few years. You can't be signing players like that. They've got to be impact players, and they need to come in ready to go.
Do you know as well, Nokia, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of surprise departures as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think that the departures are anywhere near finished. I certainly think we'll lose Fabio, we'll lose Sasha Kalajic, we'll lose at least one of the goalkeepers, and there could be more go. To be fair, and I still wouldn't rule out Strand Larsen going either. So we'll see what happens. But I still think there's stuff
that'd be horrendous. How do you replace him then when you know someone's got all that money? But I don't even want to talk about that. Greg, thank you for always being part of the show and your support throughout the whole season. This is one I've had to group this because there's quite a lot, actually more names than I could put on. Polcat, Mike Allen, Paul Wakeham, Matt Booth, Andy and Paul all have various concerns about the club, how it's been operated, especially during the transfer window. I mean, Nocky, I think it's safe to say, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of everybody and I don't speak on behalf of anybody, but the general opinion I get, the majority are concerned about the way the club is being run, about the way it seems to be slow every August. There was talk of the Johnny Phillips article, the penny dropping. There's real concerns about how this football club is run. Now, my piece on this is you're in a privileged position. You bought our football club. You give us some fantastic times. I love the promotion, love the cup run, love Europe. Thank you. I appreciate it. However, the standards have dropped massively and they're dropping each year. And Wolves are sneaking closer to being a championship side from being a 300 to 500 million pound asset or drop to a 100 million pound asset. It's a struggle. It's not been much fun. Vitor Pereira gives a bit of love last season. He got the fire going and we all had a bit of belief again. And that was nice. But that sort of papered over the cracks for me, the way the club has been operated, the poor choices on the season tickets, the lack of comms. That podcast he did in terms of talking about other stuff, there's some real concerns for me about Jeff Shee's capabilities about running our football club.
It feels a huge divide at the moment between the kind of hierarchy and everybody else. I mean, I follow my club, whatever league we're in, but I've had to shell out $900 for a season ticket.
Seats look nice, Nocky.
To me, my lad, and I can, you barely get your knees in the Steve Ball stand. It's falling down. It's ratty. The paint's stripping off it. The seats are uncomfortable. It's not a great experience. And granted, I'm not there for, I don't expect to be fed peeled grapes or anything like that. But I want to know that there's a plan. And at the moment, when you look at the football club, it just feels very, very business-like. It's what's the minimum we can do to keep ourselves where we're happy, which is sort of just in the division. And I did say earlier that he hasn't been managing our expectations. To be fair to him, when you read that podcast and you see that podcast, he kind of has managed our expectations that this is the way it's going to be going forward now. We're not going to throw loads of money at it and we're going to try and stay in the division, but we're not going to launch money at it, which in a sense, the financial safety of the club is important. I mean, you look at someone like a Man United who are a billion pounds in debt. Yeah. You look at Sheffield Wednesday, what's going on there. You look at Bury, you look at Morecambe. These teams perhaps have gone a little bit further than they should have done. From our perspective,
that doesn't mean we should look at them and be grateful, because that's what happens at the end of the journey when your business is operated terribly.
No, my point is you can have a stable business model, but you can still have some ambition tucked in there as well, and you can try to kick on a little bit. And I don't expect us to be winning Premier League; it's not going to happen. But for me, if we could just look at a year-on-year improvement, and maybe this season, if you're 16th all season, but you're never really in a relegation battle, then that's progress for me. And then maybe next season you look at finishing mid-table, then you can start looking at top 10. You should be building. We're absolutely stagnant at the moment.
We're surviving, aren't we?
We're just hoping there's 3 worst teams, and that's not what football's supposed to be.
That does feel like the ambition. I almost feel like last season Jeff Shee was shamed into painting the Billy Wright stand, the main stands. That's sort of the main entrance. It's almost. Yeah, I can't even say what I think then, because I want to keep my podcast going. But what I would say on the Jeff Shee thing, Nocky, I and a few others have been working hard on a separate investigatory podcast regarding Jeff Shee and how the club is run. We're hoping to bring you that August, early September time. There's a lot going on behind the scenes in terms of research, interviews. We are really looking forward to that. So I hope you enjoy it as well after the work we've put in. But we shall see. Nocky, I know you're looking forward to hosting that one with me. It should be good fun. I will take one more question. I just thank you to Polecat, Mike Allen, Paul, Matt, Andy and Paul for the last question. Thank you for being part of the show. Andrew says, question that's been bugging me over the summer. Do you think Johnny Phillips was deliberately duped by Fosun when they came out about his penny had dropped article? I want to answer this one, Nocky. I know Johnny. I don't know him really well, but we've spoke. He's been on the podcast. Loves Wolves. Great guy. Johnny would not write or say anything he did not believe to be true. So if he's been fed something from the club, then that may or not have been true. I mean, come the end of the window, Mark would say, actually, the penny has dropped. I don't think that's going to be the case. But in defence to Johnny here, I don't think he would say or write anything, Nocky, that he didn't believe to be true. He's not that kind of journalist. He's not that kind of person. He's too professional for that, Nocky. So I don't believe that is the case.
Yeah, Johnny's very professional in what he does. So whatever he's been told is what he's been told. He wouldn't just throw something willy-nilly out. I think there are journalists who aren't willing to ask the difficult questions because they've got relationships with the clubs. But I don't put Johnny.
We can do that on our special podcast, Nocky.
I'd love to. It's frustrating, really, because we all know what we want to ask. We all know the questions that we want answered, but unfortunately, we don't seem to get those answers. But for Johnny's perspective, yeah, if he's said that, then he's been fed that. But that doesn't mean that the club haven't looked at that and thought, well, actually, the penny dropping means we're going to clear out all the deadwood and reduce the wage bill. We don't know what the penny dropping actually means.
Absolutely. Andrew, thank you for being part of the latest show. That's as many questions as can fit in. We're into overtime for Nocky's on double pay, and he's got to get up early, so we will get this done quickly. Nocky, we've got an evening next week hosting the second favourites for the Premier League, facing Manchester City, who will be with Ryan Aït-Nouri amongst other fantastic footballers. This is a difficult game. Now, with an opportunity to bring this magnificent graphic back up, how different is this team going to look next weekend to the starting lineup?
I mean, you've got to think it's going to be close. I mean, generally, your last friendly is pretty close to your starting 11. Hoover's played too many games to not start out there, I think. The back three, yeah, that'll be the same. Gomez, Andre, yeah. I think Wolf, if he's not concussed, plays. Arias plays. Yeah, I think that's pretty close to it. I don't see anyone who's done enough to force their way in. So that's probably going to be as near to it, unless someone gets injured or something drastic happens in the next few days. I think you're going to be pretty close to that being your 11, which is terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. And now a suggestion that I've made, I think, on Twitter and to you guys, it's a shame for me that Agbadou isn't fully fit or fully ready to start a Premier League game, because, and I know this may be going backwards in some people's eyes, but I think it would certainly be a better option. Agbadou will come into right centre-back for me, and then I'll put Doherty at right wing-back. Now, Doherty's not going to be a flying wing-back, but what Doherty does, he's just getting good positions. Yes, he's not
Do you mean Mascara?
So, sorry, what did I say?
Agbadou through.
Yeah, I do apologise. Yeah, I was looking at Agbadou on there. So I'll put Mascara. Thank you for calling me on that. I mean, Agbadou definitely stays in the middle. Mascara comes back in as the right centre-back, and then I'd move Doherty further forward on the right-hand side. Apologies for that. I was looking at the screen and trying to think. Men can't multitask, especially me. So, yeah, as much as Doherty isn't going to be flying up and down, Doherty will get in good positions regardless, Nocky. He reads the game well and he gets in good positions. Now, I know that makes people saying, well, he's a little bit old for that. We're scraping the barrel. But Mascara at right centre-back and Doherty at right wing-back looks a hell of a lot better to me than Doherty at right centre-back and Hoover at right wing-back.
I don't disagree at all. I think you almost sacrifice your attacking intent on that side by just keeping Doherty on to support that area, because City are going to target that. There's no doubt about it. Mascara, for me, can you get 70 minutes out of him and then maybe make the switch then if you need to? I'll be very tempted to start him and play Doherty over there, because I just think that Doherty and Hoover's, you may as well not bother having a right side, in all honesty.
It's a real concern. Are there any other options we could play at right wing back? Now, there are a couple. Is there a temptation to put Bellegarde there? Now, is he a better footballer than Hoover? Yes. Would he offer a better delivery? Yes. I mean, I know I'm scraping the barrel here, but I've seen nothing from Hoover pre-season to suggest that he's the option going forward there.
I don't disagree. I mean, as I said earlier, I'd be tempted to put Rodrigo there because maybe with his pace,
he's busy, isn't he? He's busy.
Yeah, well, you put a little seed of doubt in City's minds there. Maybe they drop 5 feet deeper, maybe not. But I mean, a Bellegarde, not for me. But I'm pretty sure the fact that Hoover's played the last 3 in that position, I find it very difficult to think that he's not going to start out there. I just, what was the point in playing him for the 3 if you're not going to put him out there? So I think he will start. If not, I would be looking at Rodrigo over that side just to give us a little bit more pace and power and a little bit more experience down that side, because Hoover's not a seasoned Premier League player by any stretch.
Not just going forward as well, you want your wing back to be protecting Doherty, because Doherty's strong in the air, great positionally. I think Doherty at the end of last season playing at right centre back, it suited him well. I think he had sort of one poor game against Forest. Otherwise, I think he stepped up fantastically well. But your wing back of Doherty's your centre back of Doherty's physicality needs protection from a little bit of pace from his wing back, and I'm not sure Hoover's going to offer that. But we shall see anyway. Again, I hope we are eating our words come 7:30 on Saturday night. I'm not sure we are at prediction time, Nocky. I'm so glad Tyler's not on for this bit, because he would absolutely stink the place out. Your prediction for Wolverhampton Wanderers v Manchester City. Remember, it is a family show.
I can just see Mamouche and Doku pulling out to our right hand side and just
getting it stuck in Doc's pocket.
I just can see the two of them pulling across and creating space for Haaland. I think it's as many as City want, as horrible it is, and I don't want to come across as overly negative. I genuinely think it could be 5 or 6. I'm hoping, and I'm going to go with a professional 3-0 City. It'd be 2 or 3-0, but I think that there's a huge capability for this game to be dead by half time, and it could be damage limitation very on. But I'll go for a 3-0 City, and I think it'll be Marmouche with the first goal. It'll come through Dockside.
2,814 live listeners, Nocky. You just made every single one of them miserable, as well as your co-host, me. I'm not going to have the opening game of the season. I'm not going to predict Wolves to lose. I can't help myself. It's just who I am. Unfortunately, I can't have Cunha 1-0 because it's not possible. So I'm going to go with a ridiculously ambitious 0-0. Absolutely stink the place out. Do I believe what I'm saying? I absolutely don't. But I'm not going to come on the opening and go, it's over with terrible Man City 15-0. I don't believe it.
So we haven't kept a clean sheet all pre-season. We've shipped to Stoke and we've shipped to the Dog and Duck, and you think we're going to keep a clean sheet against
No, I don't think it. I'm just saying it.
It's ambitious.
That's the word that you picked out, and that is the word that is true. This has been episode 133 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to Nocky for giving up his Sunday evening to come on. Thank you to the 2,830 live people joining us. Drop us a follow, a like. I'd love to get your feedback on the show if you've not heard it before. YouTube, X, Facebook, and uploading to Spotify shortly after the show. Of the Wolves.